Welcome to Root, a game of woodland might and right. In the tabletop simulator mod we're using, scripting handles a lot of this setup process for us, but if you're playing with a good old-fashioned cardboard copy, you'll start by picking factions, setting score markers, shuffling the deck, dealing 3 cards to each player, placing ruin and item markers, and handing out some reference cards if you need them. But that's all done for us already, so we'll move straight into the individual setup steps for each faction. The turn order in a 4-player game of Root is as follows. First, the orange Marquise de Cat. Second, the blue Eerie Dynasties. Third, the green Woodland Alliance. And fourth, the gray Vagabond. There are also expansions that add 3 other factions and the option for a second Vagabond for games with up to 6 players, but we're not getting into any of that today. So, setup. Following the turn order, the orange cats are first. On the back of each player board, you'll see the list of steps we're going to take here. For the Marquise, we start by picking a corner clearing to place your keep token. Then, place a warrior in every other clearing on the board. Next, take 1 sawmill, 1 workshop, and 1 recruiter, and use each to fill empty slots in the clearing with your keep and any clearings adjacent to it. Adjacent clearings are connected by white paths. Finally, flip your player board over and fill out your buildings track with the rest of your sawmills, workshops, and recruiters, leaving the first space in each row empty. Next up are the blue birds. First, in the corner clearing on the opposite side of the map from the keep the Marquise just placed, put down 6 warriors and 1 roost token. Next, pick a leader to start the game with, but keep the rest handy. Then flip over your board, put your leader in the leader card slot, tuck your 2 loyal viziers under the decree columns as dictated by your leader, and fill your roosts track with the remaining roost tokens, leaving the first space empty. Then we head over to the Woodland Alliance. Flip the player board over, draw 3 cards, and add them to your stack of supporters. It's important to note that supporters are a separate supply of cards, different from the cards in your hand. You keep them in a face-down pile, but the Woodland Alliance player will be looking through this stack regularly to spend supporters on actions. Just remember that the cards in your hand can't be used as supporters, and cards in your supporters pile can't be played as if they were in your hand. Next, place your bases in the matching spaces in the bases section, and fill your sympathy track with sympathy tokens. Finally, the Vagabond. Choose a character and put the rest back in the box. Place your Vagabond pawn in any forest. Unless you're playing with one of the expansions, the rivers on the autumn map we're playing on don't mean anything. So any area completely enclosed by white paths and clearings is a forest. Next, shuffle your quest deck, draw 3 quests, and place them face up where everyone can see them. This next part was also handled for us by scripting in the Tabletop Simulator mod, but I'll go over it just in case. Take the ruin item tokens, marked with an R, mix them up, and without looking at them to see which is which, cover them with ruin tokens. And place each of these newly made 2-token stacks on a ruin slot on the map, also marked with an R. Then flip your board, place your character card, and put the starting items listed at the bottom of your character card, marked with an S, in your satchel. Put any unused starting items back in the box. Then place a relationship marker for every other faction in play on the indifferent space of your relationship chart. And that's it! Setup is now complete. This game is known for its asymmetrical play. Each faction plays very differently from the rest, but there are a few aspects that are the same no matter who you're playing. You can move warriors from one clearing to another that's connected by a white path. But there's a catch. You must rule either the clearing you're moving from or the clearing you're moving to. You rule a clearing if you have the most combined warriors and buildings there. On a tie, there is no ruler. So, in this example, if the Marquise wanted to move a warrior out of this clearing, since she has the same number of warriors as the Woodland Alliance, and there are no buildings, nobody rules this clearing. That means she can't move over to this clearing where the Woodland Alliance rules. But she could move to this one, since she's the ruler over here. Some factions can build in clearings with an open slot, like this one. Slots filled with ruins cannot hold buildings until the Vagabond has explored them. The cost to place a building will vary from faction to faction and throughout the game. Each clearing also has a suit: fox, rabbit, or mouse. These suits correspond to cards, which also include the bird suit. Birds are wild, meaning they can be played as any suit. Some actions you'll want to take in a given clearing only happen if you play a card from your hand with a matching suit. Most cards also have a second use. You can craft the card to gain its effect. To craft a card, you'll have to activate crafting pieces in a clearing matching the suit shown in the bottom left corner of the card. Each crafting piece can only be activated once per turn, and crafting pieces differ from faction to faction. The Marquise crafts with workshops. The Eerie craft with roosts. The Alliance crafts with sympathy. And the Vagabond crafts with hammers. So, for the Marquise to craft this Root Tea card, she'll need to activate one crafting piece, in her case, a workshop, in a mouse clearing. That would mean this workshop is activated. Once again, it can only be activated once per turn. If the card effect has a paper background like this one, that means the effect is immediate. Resolve and discard the card, scoring any victory points you've earned in the process. If that effect involves taking an item from the map supply, make sure that item is still available. If it's not, the card can't be crafted. Otherwise, take the item token and place it in the crafted items section of your player board. If the card effect has a stone background, that's a persistent effect. Place the card face up near your player board and use it accordingly. You can't craft a persistent effect if you already have one of the same name. Note that the Woodland Alliance can only craft cards from their hand, not cards that are in their supporters stack. With certain actions, you'll be able to battle other players to remove their pieces from the map. To do this, you'll choose any clearing where you have warriors. Choose another faction with pieces there to attack. Pieces can include warriors, buildings, and other tokens that belong to another faction. There are 2 steps to a battle. First, the attacker rolls 2 of these special D12s that have 3 sides each of a 0, 1, 2, or 3. The attacker deals hits equal to the higher of the 2 roll values, and the defender deals hits equal to the lower one. But neither side can deal more hits than the number of warriors they have in that clearing. In this case, let's say the Eerie Dynasty was attacking the Marquise de Cat. The 3 is the higher of the 2 rolls, so the Eerie Dynasty deals that amount of hits. The 2 is the lower of the 2 rolls, which means the defending Marquise would deal that many hits. However, there's only 1 cat in this clearing, meaning the maximum amount of hits she can deal is only 1. The next step in a battle is to remove pieces equal to the number of hits dealt. Both sides remove pieces at the same time. If you still have warriors in the clearing, those are removed first, but you can choose which of your own pieces to remove after they've all been slain. Whenever you remove an enemy building or token, so not warriors, you score a victory point. This applies even outside of battle. Some effects will allow for extra hits, which aren't affected by the number of warriors you have in the clearing. One example is if the defender has no warriors in the clearing. That leaves them defenseless, which means the attacker deals 1 extra hit. If the defender has an ambush card matching the suit of the clearing, they can play it to deal 2 hits to the attacker immediately, before the dice are even rolled. The attacker can cancel the ambush's effect by playing a matching ambush card of their own. Your warrior count doesn't matter when it comes to playing ambush cards. Even if you have only 1 warrior in a clearing, you can still deal 2 hits with an ambush card. If all of an attacker's warriors are removed by an ambush, the battle ends immediately, with no dice roll ever happening. Every turn has 3 phases: birdsong, daylight, and evening. What happens in each of these phases is different for every faction, which is the perfect segue into what sets these factions apart from each other. The Marquise de Cat. The cat's keep gives her and her feline friends 2 abilities as long as it's still on the map. First, she's the only one who can place any pieces in the clearing with the keep token. Second, whenever cat warriors are supposed to be removed, she can play a card matching the clearing those warriors are in to instead relocate them to the keep. During the bird song of the Marquise's turn, place 1 wood token at every sawmill on the map. During daylight, your first step is to craft any cards in your hand you want to by activating workshops. You don't have to craft anything, but this is the time to do it if you're going to. Then, you can take up to 3 of the following actions in any order, or spend a bird card per extra action if you need more than 3. Battle, and we've already covered how that works. March, which means up to 2 moves. Recruit, by placing one warrior at each recruiter. Build by placing one building in a clearing you rule in an open slot, spending wood tokens equal to its cost as shown on the buildings chart on your player board. The wood you spend must come from a clearing connected to the one you're building in by any number of clearings you rule. When you place a building, you score the victory points you uncover on your player board. Or lastly, overwork by spending a card to place another wood token at one sawmill with a suit matching that card. The 3 actions you take in this part of Daylight can happen in any order, and you can choose to double up and do the same action more than once, except recruiting, which has a once per turn limit. In the evening phase, draw 1 card into your hand. If you've uncovered any draw bonuses on your player board, draw 1 more card for each of those. If you have more than 5 cards in your hand, discard down to 5, then your turn ends. The Eerie Dynasties. The Eerie are the exception to the no ruler on a tie rule. If they're tied for presence in a clearing, they rule. But they also have a disdain for trade, which means if a crafted card would normally net you victory points, you only score 1, no matter how many the card says you earn. During Birdsong, add 1 or 2 cards from your hand into any column of the decree. You have to add at least 1, and only one of the cards you add can be from the bird suit. And if at this point in the game you have no roosts left on the board, you get to put 1 back, along with 3 warriors in the clearing with the fewest total warriors from all factions. And on a tie, you choose. In Daylight, start by doing any crafting you want to do by activating roosts in matching clearings. Then, you must resolve the decree from left to right across each column. To do this, you have to take the action of that column in a clearing matching each card in it. So, if a column has 3 cards in it, you'll have to take that action 3 times. But cards within that column can be resolved in any order. To recruit, place a warrior in a matching clearing with a roost. To move at least 1 warrior out of a matching clearing. To battle, initiate 1 battle in a matching clearing. And remember, bird cards are wild, meaning you can take this action in a clearing of any suit. To build, place a roost in a matching clearing you rule that doesn't already have one. Remember, there has to be an open slot to place the building. In the evening, score victory points equal to the last empty space on your roost track. Draw 1 card, plus any bonuses, and discard down to 5 cards. If any action in your decree can't be completed for any reason, you fall into turmoil. First, your regime is humiliated. You lose 1 victory point per bird card in the decree. That includes the 2 loyal viziers, so turmoil will always cost you at least 2 victory points. Then your court is purged. Discard all the cards in the decree except those 2 viziers. Next, your leader is deposed. Flip the leader card face down and set it aside. Then choose a new one to take his place. Note that each leader has a special effect. These effects are persistent as long as the leader is active. If all your leader cards are face down, you can flip them all face up again before choosing your new leader. Then, put your viziers back into the decree columns dictated by the new leader. Finally, you rest. Daylight ends, and you move on to the evening phase. The Woodland Alliance. These feisty little rodents are few but mighty. They always use the higher dice roll in battle, even when they're defending. Before we get into the Alliance's turn order, let's talk a little bit more about supporters. You'll be spending these cards to place sympathy tokens throughout the game. Whenever another player removes a sympathy token or moves warriors into a clearing with one, they have to add a card from their hand matching that clearing suit to your supporters stack. If they don't have a matching card, you get to see their hand, then draw the top card from the deck to add to your supporters stack instead. On to the turn order. During Birdsong, you start by revolting as many times as you want. To revolt, spend 2 supporters matching a sympathetic clearing. Sympathetic clearings have a sympathy token on them. Remove all enemy pieces in the clearing and build the matching base. Then place warriors there equal to the number of sympathetic clearings that match the revolt clearing suit, including the revolt clearing itself. Then, place a warrior in the officer's box on your player board. Note that if a base is removed, you'll lose half of your officers and all supporters of the matching suit, including birds. Next, you can spread sympathy as many times as you want. Place a sympathy token in any unsympathetic clearing adjacent to a sympathetic clearing. If you don't have any sympathetic clearings on the map, you can place it anywhere. But you'll have to spend supporters of a matching suit to the clearing equal to the cost indicated on the sympathy track to do this. And if there are 3 or more warriors from another faction in that clearing, you'll have to spend an extra matching supporter. During daylight, you can craft cards from your hand by activating Sympathy Token. Mobilize by adding a card from your hand to your supporters stack. And train by spending a card from your hand whose suit matches one of the bases you've built to put a warrior in your officer's box. The number of officers determines how many military actions you'll get to take during the evening. Unlike the cats and birds, this ragtag crew operate in the shadows, carrying out all their military actions in the evening phase. You can do as many of these actions as you have officers. First, you can move, initiate a battle, recruit by placing a warrior in a clearing with a base, or organize by replacing a warrior in an unsympathetic clearing with a sympathy token, scoring the victory points you reveal in the process. And as long as you have the officers to cover it, you can do any of these actions more than once. When you've finished, draw cards just like the other guys do at the end of their turn, and discard down to 5 if you have too many. The Vagabond. This little guy is a lone wanderer. He can't place warriors, rule clearings, or stop anybody else from ruling them. But he's nimble, so he can move through clearings regardless of the ruler. The Vagabond pawn moves and battles just like a warrior from the other factions, but he'll never be removed from the board. You rely on items to accomplish your goals, expanding your arsenal by exploring the ruins and helping the other factions. Items can be damaged, leaving them unusable. Damaged items have to stay in the damaged area until you repair them. To use an undamaged item, you'll exhaust it by flipping it face down. At Birdsong, flip 3 items face up, plus 2 more for every teapot you've got. Then you can slip, moving into an adjacent clearing or forest. The Vagabond is the only character that can ever enter a forest, and slipping is the only way to do it. During daylight, you can flip items face down to take various actions. To move, you'll have to exhaust a boot. To battle, you'll exhaust a sword. To strike, exhaust a crossbow, removing 1 warrior from the clearing you're in. If a player doesn't have any warriors, you can remove one of their buildings or tokens instead. To explore, exhaust a torch and take 1 item from a ruin in your clearing. This earns you a victory point and removes the ruin token from the map, opening that slot for other players to build in. To aid, exhaust any item and give a card matching the suit of your clearing to any player with a presence in that clearing, or a bird, since birds are wild. Then, you can take 1 item from their crafted items box. To take the quest action, exhaust the 2 items listed on one of the face-up quest cards whose suit matches your clearing. Put that quest in your play area, and either draw 2 cards from the deck or score 1 victory point per quest you've completed matching this quest suit, including this one. Then replace the quest you just completed with a new one. To craft, exhaust as many hammers as you need to match the card's crafting cost. The Vagabond doesn't need to worry about the suit for crafting. To repair a damaged item, exhaust a hammer. And finally, each Vagabond character has a special action listed on the character card. To take that action, exhaust a torch. In the evening phase, if you happen to be in a forest, repair all your damaged items. Draw 1 card, plus 1 more for every coin token you've got. Little different draw bonus mechanic from the other factions. And discard down to 5 if you have too many. Lastly, if you're carrying too many items in your satchel, remove enough to get you down to the limit, 6 plus 2 for every bag token you have, and put them back in the box. You can move face-up, undamaged teapots, coins, and bags between your satchel and the tracks on the left section of your player board whenever you want. If it gets damaged, though, it has to go in the damage section of the satchel. If it's on one of those tracks, it doesn't count towards your carrying capacity, but if it's damaged, it does. The relationships chart shows how friendly you are with the other faction. You can improve relations with another faction by using the aid action. The number between that faction's current space and the next one shows how many times you have to aid them within the same turn in order to improve the relationship. Whenever you improve a relationship, you score the number of victory points indicated by that box. When you become allies with a faction, you can use their warriors to move and battle. If you ever remove a warrior, that faction becomes hostile. From this point on, you score a victory point every time you remove one of their warriors during battle, not just their buildings and tokens. But whenever you enter a clearing with hostile warriors, you'll have to exhaust an extra boot. Battling as the Vagabond is a little different since you have no warriors of your own. The Vagabond pawn isn't a warrior, so it's not affected by warrior-related effects. Your maximum number of hits is your total number of undamaged swords, whether they're exhausted or not. When you're on the receiving end of a hit, you damage items of your choice. If you have no undamaged swords, you're defenseless, meaning you take an extra hit. Under normal circumstances, the game ends when someone reaches 30 victory points. However, mixed into the deck are 4 dominance cards, one in each suit. These cards can be spent for their suit, just like any other card. But whenever one is played or discarded, place it face up near the map, instead of putting it in the discard pile. During any player's daylight phase, they can spend a card of the matching suit to pick up one of these dominance cards. If you have at least 10 victory points, you can play a dominance card by placing it in your play area. Then, remove your score marker from the score track. Victory points don't matter to you anymore. You have a new win condition, as indicated on this dominance card. The Vagabond can't rule clearings, so dominance cards for him mean something a little different. When the Vagabond activates a dominance card, regardless of its suit, he forms a coalition with the player with the lowest number of victory points. On a tie, the Vagabond player chooses. Once the coalition is formed, the Vagabond player places his scored marker on the player board of the player he just formed a coalition with. If he forms a coalition with a hostile faction, that faction becomes indifferent. If that faction wins, so does the Vagabond. And that's how you play Root. Hey there, my name's Kyle McCarley. I'm a voice actor by trade, but board games are one of my favorite hobbies. If you like board games, you should check out The Board and Barrel every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on twitch.tv/Kyle McCarley, where me and my buddies play board games. We also give you guys a chance to help us or hurt us, depending on how you feel, with our Buff and Nerf house rules. And we have virtual bingo cards for you to fill out while you're watching the show. It's a good time. Hope to see you there.